Like we said, we're 2 years out of the Hadean now, so obviously we're a year into another project, 6 months into another project. Like we're working on things down the line here.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the eSkate Chat podcast. I'm here today with a special person here at Evolve Skateboards. I want to introduce you. This is Jared, and Jared's our lead designer here at Evolve. He's been with us for a while now. And mate, welcome to the eSkate Chat. How's it feel?
Thanks for having me. A bit intimidating, a few cameras around, and first time doing this.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, bit of fun.
So look, let's clue everyone up. What do you do at Evolve?
I'm the industrial designer, so design the products, work really closely with you on R&D, so new products, assist with the designing for manufacture and production, packaging, all sorts of things. Yeah, anything 3D really is what I work on.
Yeah, so designing a product, it's not easy, is it?
No, it takes a long time. I think a lot of people underestimate how long it actually takes for a thought to become like manufactured and like actually become sold. It's
that's it.
A long process, usually like 2 years, 18 months. Can be quicker, but that's harder.
Yeah, and just coming up with that idea and then, getting it to that first stage. Actually, it's hard, but that's kind of the fun part, right?
Yeah, the early stage is fun because it's when you're like putting like pencil to paper, the world's your oyster kind of thing. You can do whatever you want. So that's the really fun stuff, kind of. What do you call it? Like blue sky thinking or like wishful thinking. Yeah. Or wouldn't it be cool if we did this, or wouldn't it be cool if it looked like that?
Yeah.
And as you work through the process, you slowly put more restrictions and parameters around what you have to do because it actually has to be a product. Yeah. And you slowly make something that's achievable. And yeah, but the early stage is fun.
So speaking of that whole process, right, we've just gone through it with the Hadean board. So this is not new news. Everyone knows we've been talking about the Hadeans for a long time now. We are super stoked on, the final design, the performance behind it. But we found out today, good news is we won a gold award in the Good Design Australia.
Yeah, it's great news, awesome news, yeah.
So the timing is perfect for our podcast today.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know what the Good Design Australia is, it's a prestigious award that happens annually every year, and it's made up of like multiple different accolades in the design categories and process.
Different categories,
And I know you've had definitely experience from past employment through all the good design. Like, did you want to explain any more about what it is?
Oh, it's just like it's an Australian-based design award, which is also kind of like tries to celebrate Australian design. So it looks at all sorts of different businesses and consultancies around Australia and what they do.
But it's not just Australia.
There's definitely global entries, but it's an Australian-based judging panel. Even though there's international people on that panel as well, but it's Australia's Design Awards, which is good. And then you're in the sports and lifestyle category, which is a lot of cool products in there. So it was really cool to get that recognition, that gold tick.
That's at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's just recognition for the hard work and being judged by people who see and are involved in this industry, product design we're talking about here, and just that whole process of and. When I found out, I was stoked, man. And
absolutely. It's not something that you get every year or like working in product design for ages. It doesn't happen all the time. Special products get it, so it's really cool.
I mean, part of the process is, there's the application to enter the awards, and it was so hard trying to fill out the application because it really tested you in understanding what that process was, and it was because we'd already designed the board by then. And so it sort of made me like reflect on where it started and how we got there.
Definitely.
You got judged on like the form, the function, there was sustainability, how commercially viable is the product, the quality. And I know when I was just working through the application, I guess I learned a few things about it as well because during the process, it happens so quickly. Like
things you don't even realize you're doing. Like sustainability is just something that was kind of built into some of the steps of the process, or like function. Like we always call that like ride experience or ride feel. It was kind of we take that for granted almost, that we always just deal with the function naturally.
Yeah.
But then to actually put it into those categories was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it definitely made me reflect, and there were a couple of moments too when I was, you know, because it's just happens so quickly. You just do it on the fly. Like, you know, once all the drawings are done, you know, then it's up to the stage where you want to start making some prototypes, and then you receive the prototypes and it's like, oh no, this isn't right, or you break something and you have to change it, and it's just all the little 1%ers. It just adds up, and it just made me, you know, really sort of appreciate where it started, how we got there, and even to the point where, you know, looking back on all the sketches that when it was first designed of the carbon, you know, the initial concept of trying to make it like this really unique board and like futuristic and car inspired. So do you remember that? You remember those?
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's probably one of the coolest things about the Hadean carbon deck is when you look back at those original sketches, like we were saying before, these crazy ideas, and then we got all those crazy ideas in the final product. Like we kept coming back to the core idea of what, you know, this deck should be.
Yeah.
The air vents and the integrated electronics and, you know, this clean, sleek, seamless design.
What about?
It's really cool to look back at it and see that the sketches are there.
I mean, what about the, you know, at the end of the day, like when we were talking about this new board, we knew that we weren't trying to make a different version of the GTR.
Yeah.
You know, that was never the concept. It was like that's not going to be good enough. We wanted to make something that was just next level, you know, completely different, ground up design, every part being different to what the GTR was. And the whole concept of trying to get as much performance into this board, you know, without ruining what it looks like and you know, the aesthetics behind it. You know, what are some of the design challenges that, you know, we discussed and encountered during it?
Yeah, I guess like at the start there, that was probably the coolest part of the project as well, as saying, look, we're not just redesigning the GTR, let's do something different.
Yeah.
And we always had this idea in these conversations that you brought to the table at the start of the chassis design, and, you know, what if the electronics like floated inside the frame rather than were inside a box.
Yeah, that... I remember I was on a plane and I was with one of our other employees and we were talking about that. How do we get more of it in it? Because originally we were just going to beef out the carbon GTR deck and just add more performance in that. But
we got bigger cells, you've got bigger thicknesses, and that would have been the easiest thing to do. We could have just put a box and like done the same thing.
100%.
We could have added some cool lines to it, but you know, what actually came down to is when we were looking at those bigger cells and the electronic system were changing. You know, it would have made it thicker. And then we look at the carbon, and it's, you know, the profile of the deck is a skateboard. You look at it and it doesn't look like there's something screwed to the bottom of it. It doesn't look like something's attached to like a camel hump or anything like that. It's all one unit. So, you know, we added this bigger electronic system, and then we had to go, how can we make that integrated? That's how we did the chassis. And we kind of obsessed over nearly 10 millimeters of material. Like, because we had the carbon underneath there, and then we had the plastic enclosure, a bit of padding. It just added this little bit of extra material, which made it look like a chunkier board, look like the bamboo maybe.
I like the word obsessing, because literally that's what we did.
Yeah, like over millimeters. Because it just didn't look right. It just kept looking too big.
Yeah.
You know, we had a design at some stages where we were screwing from the bottom like the bamboo, and it's just like, well, that's not the carbon, it's integrated.
Yeah.
So to shave off those few millimeters and to get that bigger cell, that bigger electronic system inside a deck, which is, you know, essentially the same as the GTR.
Yeah, that's right.
It was pretty crazy. Like, I didn't think it was possible a few times.
Yeah.
I definitely had questions if we could achieve it.
I just kept thinking of like bike frames, and like, you know, if you use these like tubes to make the shape of the skateboard, and then just sort of hacking it in together. You know, it's almost like a skeleton of a body where you've got your bones as structure, and then everything else that's sort of in between, you know, it gives the performance. You know, you're packing all the hardware in between the skeleton, and essentially, you know, that was the concept that we're trying to achieve.
And it was a challenge we put on ourselves, which is a cool thing to do, I think. Like, you know, you could sit there and, like I said before, you could sketch and you can come up with whatever you want. Or you could also go from a really practical route, and we could have just taken the cells and put a plastic enclosure and said, screws are this big, seals are this big, it's going to be this big. But instead we kind of did some wishful thinking and said, like, what if it didn't have to be like that? What if we remove material and we pushed ourselves to try something, because getting that hole in the deck and maintaining the strength, in fact, actually making it stronger, which we ended up doing, we didn't know that was possible.
No.
Like, it was a lot of trial and error.
100%. And like we were thinking 100% this is going to break. Like, come on, it's a frame, it's a hole. And, you know, you get like 100 kilo person standing on it with force going up and down bumps. They're not going to last.
Yeah. And the first few didn't last.
Yeah, we broke a few, but
that's part of the process again.
Exactly. You know, designing anything, any kind of product is, you know, it's a process. And you have to break things to actually move forward. Otherwise, you know, during your, process prototyping, if you don't, you just don't know exactly what those limits are.
Yeah. And like, once we locked in that, like, we knew it was strong enough, then we had to go back to the beginning again and go like, okay, well, how does it feel under the foot? Like, what's our stance width? What's like, you know, we knew we had the wheelbase locked in, but we also wanted to get that curvature under our feet. Do you remember how like we kind of resolved it and then we're like, oh, hold on, we got wheel bite here, or we've got like, we don't have a wide enough landing for the feet. So then we had to change all those surfaces and design that again. That was fun.
But I mean, it's interesting. Like, you design a part, but then that single part that you've designed from scratch, it's got to then work as a whole complete.
Yeah.
And, you know, on this Hadean board, there were so many components that we had to, you know, start again from scratch. And then to make it work as a system, but then we had the issues of trying to work out what is the end result going to look like.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to build a beast of a board electrically, but man, it's got to look like sexy as, right?
Yeah, it has to look cooler than the GTR. It has to kind of make a bit of a statement when you look at it. And that was an interesting part of it as well. You know, we had those different textures, and like, once we had the chassis, we knew we had the plastic on the underside. Yeah. And we knew we needed the heat sink, and we needed to improve heat dissipation. So we had that. So even then, like, we got to
a lot of discussions around what it was going to look like when you flip it up.
Yeah.
You know, how is the plastic case going to integrate properly with the rest of the carbon?
Yeah.
So we definitely debated a lot internally.
So we didn't want it to be like this patchwork quilt. I remember a few times we're like, is it going to look really ugly if we see plastic, carbon, metal? But then, you know, we worked on a few different textures and surface treatments, and once we got the forged carbon locked in, like, we thought that might contrast too much, but it kind of frames it all really nicely.
The mixture of materials, at the end of the day, you know, the vision for that was, you know, like a supercar, high performance car inspired.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you see these beautiful cars and they've got carbon fiber, and then they've got, you know, Alcantara, and then there's like, you know, you get this, there's always plastics in the car, but then they're beautifully finished with the right, you know, the selected number of what the tool mold should be internally. Like, just choosing those numbers. And I remember, even just with all the plastics, you know, we had a special sheet that we were folding over, and it was like, all right, no, that's the final finish we want of the tool.
Surface texture, yeah. And then also the split line between the parts. Like, you know, there was too big a gap between the like a car. All these parts come together to seem like a cohesive whole. And if there's a big gap between two parts, it feels a bit cheap, or it doesn't look too much. Your eye follows the dark spot between them, but we're able to achieve this really nice tolerance between the plastic, the lenses for the LEDs. It all really feels like one part, despite the magnitude of parts in there, the multitude.
Yeah, and it was all the material selection too, you know, for that, for the battery case itself. It's not just a plastic case. This is like a unique blend of material, you know.
Same material we use in the bamboo case. So, like, you know, we know it can withstand kits. It's not like a cheap plastic.
Yeah. So it's like nylon, but there's a glass fibers in it as well to give it that structure and strength. Man, like, I look back on this project, and it's funny, the project's finished for us, but it hasn't even really got out there yet. Like, it's the next journey. And we're talking about a whole design process. You know, it starts from the sketches and the ideas, and then you're working through it to, you know, finally getting it ready for manufacture. You know, that's like a massive journey itself, but we're at the stage now where it's over to, you know, the rest of our team here at Evolve. which is the distribution, the customer service, after sales service, the marketing.
It's a logistical nightmare. Like when you try and think about it all.
Yeah. But it's crazy to think that that's what we're thinking about now. Like I know our minds because we're involved from that start of the process, but now we're on to the next projects. It's funny how it works.
2 years out of the start of the Hadean journey, I guess you'd say, and it still hasn't ended. Like you said, it's on to the next part of the journey. Yeah.
I look back on it and I think, man, that was tough.
Yeah, like I guess because like we did challenge ourselves for what we do, and then like to get the manufacturing right, that's been a hard journey as well because there's all these components, they're all new components. Like we kind of got to the point where the GTR2 was assembling nicely. We've been doing it for a while. It worked really well together.
It 100% smooth. Like we've been making that product for ages, and our assembly team, we can whip these out pretty quickly now. And
a spanner in the works. We're like, what until we change every component and start it again?
It's hard. It puts a massive issue and cloud over the business. And yes, the product's so rad, but then you take a few steps backwards trying to get it out.
Yeah.
And the challenges you face in terms of
and we learn a lot from that too, like things we do differently in the future where, we could take into account that time and make the parts more, like we've learned and we changed the parts so they're easy to assemble now, but we'll do that earlier on next time and earlier on the time after that and earlier on again, improving there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you need to have as much control over that process as you can.
Yeah.
From, the communication with all of the tool makers, the suppliers, it's hard.
Yeah, you talk about that iterative design. We were saying like we were prototyping, we were 3D printing the deck, we were standing on it to make sure it felt right under the foot and breaking it, and then we do it again.
Yeah,
prototyping, and then when you get to manufacturing, that process kind of does start again where you tool up, you get your first samples and you look at it and you go like, this kind of looks like the prototype, but actually, the triggers are catching, or like actually the overmold doesn't sit quite right. So then you have to start this new process of trial and error and test writing.
Yeah.
Like so much test writing to get it right in manufacturing as well.
Yeah. It's not, manufacturing is difficult and especially, you talked about the triggers catching and this and that. Like, you make your tool, you make your mold, you've already had small batches and you've ticked them off and it's like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next challenge and part of that process. And then all of a sudden you start making larger quantities and then something else creeps in, even though you've already ticked it off.
Yeah.
But it's the last thing you expect is like, oh, wait up, something's warped slightly because of a temperature change and you've already made, 5,000 of them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what? But we've approved this. We've confirmed this.
Yeah. What's going wrong? And then
how can this happen? It's
we're lucky that we can have those conversations directly with our suppliers and fix these things quickly. Like we're pretty adaptable.
Yeah.
Like it's stressful in the moment, but the fact that we can find these problems and the fact that we're all riding and able to test it also means we know what we're looking for with these problems. We're not waiting for the customer to pull it out of a box. Like we've written these boards for months.
Yeah. No, hats off to you as well, I have to say. You've done an awesome job here at Evolve and been very stressful at times. But that's part of it. It's not easy designing and then bringing product to a, commercial, success story.
That's it. Yeah. Because there's so many parts that go into it. At the end of the day, it is just going to be stressful. Is that like you're making something that doesn't exist before?
Yeah.
That's always got some stresses to it.
What about the app?
Yeah, the app was a whole other ball game. Nearly done.
You've been project managing the app?
Yeah, the app's been a really interesting journey as well. So we've actually rebuilt that in a lot of ways.
Completely.
We looked at all the maps that weren't working correctly and looked at how we load the data there. And so we've streamlined the GPS system in that and the customization function as well of the boards. That's something we have on the GTR, but not to this level, right?
Yeah.
We have the acceleration curves, the braking curves, and then the app's been a real journey. And then the app has to work with the remote, and the remote has to work with the board, and then all that's software based, and then there's also the hardware. So developing the acceleration curves, which we were talking about the other day. And where the the trigger sits inside the remote in relation to the PCB. And the signal it sends to the board, and then the app reads that as well.
And the position of the magnets that sits precisely on the trigger also determines how that curve feels.
So getting that right, and then we turn around, so we got it right, which took months, working with our software dev, and then we turn around and go like, oh look, we actually also want to let the customer choose 7 options of acceleration curves, and we have to make sure all 7 of those are safe to use.
Yeah, I mean, so much work has gone into the whole platform, like from the software. To the whole design structure. What's good about this though is that this work that we've done, over the last sort of 2 years, it's certainly going to shape the future of Evolve.
Yeah, definitely a platform to build on. Look at that chassis frame. Like, what else can we do with the chassis frame? Or looking at the interface on the remote, we rebuilt that, and it's the most visual display of like real-time data from a board that we've done. So what else can we do? What else can we show? Like how more like useful can we make that guided interface for the customers?
Well, these are all the questions that we're asking ourselves now.
Yeah.
Like the Hadean projects come to an end, and there's always stuff in the pipeline. We're always thinking and modifying, but it's like, where do we get these ideas from?
Yeah.
What's the future for Evolve look like? And you don't answer all those questions all at once, by the way.
I'm just give the product line.
I'm just like bringing. How do we come about these ideas?
It's interesting. Like, I know you and I are always looking around. Like, a lot of the guys here, we're kind of into the sport of eSkate itself, but even like other areas, there's like
other sports,
like bike riding, like mountain biking. Like even
snowboarding,
snowboarding's a huge part. Like surfing, even just down to like soft goods and running and shoes. Like me personally, obviously interested in design in all areas. But the guys, cameras, gadgets, like you look at everything, and all of a sudden we pick up something. We're like, oh, look, how this button works. Like, we do this, and then look at this new tech in like a drone or something. So we're lucky that there's a lot of people here who have that kind of mindset of like, what's cool, what works, what's fun.
It's never one single person. It's a collaboration of ideas, and then it's a matter of how we work as a team to get those ideas to paper and then bring it into a commercial product.
Definitely, because we're not like, otherwise it just turns into building a board for your own specific tastes and needs. Like, it has to be a collaboration of ideas that makes it something that is such a cool product, because it's got a little bit of all these different people's thoughts and different rider styles. So the end result, more inspiration areas it comes from, the better off it can be. The key is then to kind of streamline that into what is an Evolve product, like, that ride experience, that ride feeling. Like, otherwise we could turn around and make a tractor or, a Lamborghini, but at the end of the day, we're making
a scooter.
Or a scooter.
No offense to the scooter riders out there.
No offense to the scooter riders, but what is Evolve and doesn't tick that box? And we have not guidelines, but I think we all kind of know what that is. And then you guide that very strongly as well. Like, you definitely know what that is.
Yeah. We just got to always stay true to the brand and what it's always been about. And it's been about, the passion for surfing and snowboarding on land.
Yeah.
And the endless wave and the feeling you get from that.
And that, like, the Hadean definitely ticks that box. Like, this turned into something that was going 70 Ks an hour.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to carve on that. Like, maybe a different product might, but the Hadean, for what we set out to do, we hit that perfect speed and range and takeoff power with the motor size. And that kind of not restricted the design, but that's why the Hadean became this perfect package of what we think the next Evolve product should be.
Yeah. Like, so, we're talking about, like, the future of Evolve, what other stuff is ahead for us. The Hadean, we've been focusing on just building a super rad electric skateboard that's got all the bells and whistles. Really, you've got enough power that you need. It goes as fast as you don't really want it to go much faster. Otherwise, you can't properly carve. It's got the power. It's got the acceleration. And we've focused on all those finer details of the quality and the build and the ride feel and just all of it's like a whole new package for us. It's a new platform, like you said before. Like, how can we take what we've just learned through the Hadean into how does this sort of flow down through our other product lineups?
Definitely, there's a chance to look at all the small details that make our boards good and what can we do to make them better or the best. there's a million parts on there that we could refine and make better as well, just because we've learned so much from this experience, definitely.
Because it's a big upgrade from, what we've done with the GTR in terms of that platform.
Yeah.
And the GTRs, don't forget, it's been a rad board for majority of people out there.
Yeah.
But not everyone needs a board that goes, 40 Ks on an AT for range. It doesn't need to go up the steepest hill. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of room for us to.
Yeah, I guess with the Hadean, we challenged ourselves by saying how can we make this bigger and better board in a similar form factor to the GTR and make it cooler and really sexy in the carbon. But I guess the next challenge for us now is how do we make the next package? And what is that next package? Is it bigger and better? Is it smaller and lighter? Is it fatter and tall? I don't know. There's a million questions to ask. What do our riders want?
Exactly.
Yeah, and we start there. We ticked a lot of boxes with that ride experience, but then I'm sure there's some new parameters we can set up for ourselves and be how about we design for this person, or we design for this market, or this terrain? There's a million questions there. So
there's so many different riding opportunities out there, and ways you can use the product. You've got your lighter commuter styles, or you've got your all-rounder performance board, which is really the Hadean. But then again, the GTR is still very performance-y,
but definitely.
But you can get something
until you get on a Hadean, and then you're I can't go back to a GTR.
Yeah, unless we do the Hadean in a GTR, but doesn't have the same performance as what the Hadean.
Definitely, and then a little bit of a lighter board with the GTR setup is great for a commuter board. You're not looking for that speed and performance, so the GTR still has a lot of potential in that build.
Yeah, it comes down to customers' wants as well. Everyone has a different need. Some people like going really fast as well. I don't think we'll ever make boards that are going to go too fast, because I think 98% of the time when you ride is usually under 35k an hour.
Yeah.
And you want that ride 98% of the time to be so rad. So it makes more sense to us to, focus on that end.
Yeah.
But you mentioned terrain, that's a whole nother conversation as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
Street, just your normal all-terrain, or you're going more off-road.
Yeah, we got our 97s, we got our AT wheels, and how do the boards handle those terrains? There's a whole interesting area there. Hard conversations to have. Like we said, we're 2 years out of the Hadean now, so obviously we're a year into another project, 6 months into another project. We're working on things down the line here, so without giving too much away, it's really hard to talk about. There's definitely some interesting things on the horizon, short term and long term.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for what the future holds, and certainly looking forward to seeing the world get some normality back, and so we can travel and actually visit some of these other communities, and logistics things are easier in the future. So I'm hoping maybe next year things will change.
Yeah, definitely. If we can get over to some of our suppliers, or be more hands-on.
Yeah.
We've been a bit limited this year. A lot of waiting for things to ship, even prototypes or samples. That's added so much time to this process. To be more hands-on and to learn directly from them would be great. Yeah,
and you're right. I mean, talking about visiting our suppliers, that's something we haven't done.
Yeah.
And normally we see our suppliers, 5-6 times a year.
Yeah, they're our best friends in this.
Yeah.
We can't do it without them. So
we go see them, we solve problems, and we talk future, and have that face-to-face relationship. We haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, because they're similar people to us. They pull out something from their side of things. Have you seen this? And oh, that's great. Can we put that into the product or use this? And then even then, we haven't been able to go to the States and see the guys riding over there, guys doing different stuff. We talk about terrains, wetter climates, all sorts of things. People are doing different things. We're just not seeing that at the moment.
I know.
As great as Queensland is, it'd be nice to see more of the world.
Yeah, that we've got a new retail shop and at our Evolve set up at Evolve USA.
Yeah.
Haven't even gone and seen that.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Yeah. For some reason in my head I was surely you've seen it, but how?
No.
It's just not possible.
I helped design the layout and that. And it's the same with UK. We've had the London store there at Here East, and it's a fantastic place.
Yeah, just kind of like sitting on our hands here.
Haven't seen that either.
Yeah, fingers crossed in the next few weeks we can get out there. Yeah,
it's looking
weeks,
like that.
Months.
We'll see what happens.
That sounds wishful thinking.
Yeah. Look, Jared, thank you so much.
No worries.
It's great that you've joined the eSkate chat, and everyone out in the community has finally met you now. I know you're going to be rocking up to the Halloween ride, which is in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
You got your.
I got to find an outfit.
I was going to say.
I need a costume.
Any
I've seen the
ideas?
high standards that there's been the last few years, so trying to decide where I go, gory or not. A bit of blood seems to be the vibe. Yeah.
I've got to work out what I'm going to wear too.
Yeah. Pressure's on now.
But yeah, man, thanks heaps for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the eSkate chat. Remember, subscribe. If you've got any questions, make sure you leave it in the comments below. We want to hear your ideas. It helps us plan ahead for other things for the future. But until then, happy days.